I don't know if I really fully grasped exactly what President of the Kingdom Supper meant until as the year has progressed. I've learned, and I'm really humbled by it. I mean, it's really a big honor. Well, definitely trying to figure out who my guest of honor would be. Although I have to say Jane came to mind pretty much immediately. And then we've attended a few meetings. I have a lot of guidance from the committee. And then just appearing in the parade and on the Channel 13 newscast. So it wasn't too cumbersome. I have always really respected Jane. We grew up together. We went to high school together. We both graduated in 1993. And honestly, it's kind of funny. You know, Facebook keeps people connected. Just her ideas and her viewpoints. I really respect what she has to say. I love being a part of Callaway County. It's funny, when I went away to college, I went to college in Kentucky, and my dad said, "You're never going to come home." And he was pretty disappointed about it. But I did come home, and I love being a part of Callaway County. I love being involved in the community, and I think it's something that my family has been, I mean, it's important to them too. My family business was started in 1934 with my great-grandfather, and then my grandfather joined the business, and then my dad and uncle ran it, and now my husband and I and my sister and her husband run the business. And I don't think I really planned to come back home and work at the business, but right before my senior year of college, I came home and worked at the office, and I fell in love with title insurance. I mean, I love what I do, so that's why I do it. I have come to the supper growing up and the last few years, but I don't know if I really appreciated it until I've started studying the history. I mean, this is the 110th supper. That's pretty amazing.
Well, it's funny. In the days of modern social media, I actually got a pop-up message with a request from Julie that I get in touch with her. She said, "I have something to ask you about," which is unusual. You know, we don't usually communicate directly, and so I sent her my phone number, and she gave me a call, and she had to kind of explain. You know, of course, when you're away, you don't keep up with this is coming and when the dates are or anything, and so she started to explain it to me, and I was kind of speechless, wasn't even sure, oh my goodness, like, how did you think of me and what? And so we talked a little bit about it, and it was very flattering. And then, of course, so she sent me to the website, and I started to read up a little bit and saw how many of my family members. So I remembered pretty quickly that my mom had been a president, but Carol was honored, and my grandfather, and my great uncle, and my great grandfather. And so to sort of understand that whole lineage that was being handed down was very exciting. So it was wonderful. Well, lots of fond memories, of course, but some of the earliest were spending time out in Millersburg and Williamsburg. So we had farms in the family, and so I like to tell my city friends now about, you know, driving tractors and herding cows, and, you know, that we really have that kind of livelihood here. And so kind of the simpler time. But at the same time, you know, I've enjoyed kind of being able to represent that in a way in some bigger cities, and to sort of remind people that, no, this is sort of how a lot of the country lives. Let me tell you about this. And so really you get a lot of experiences growing up here because it's a smaller town. You can participate in a lot of things. Arts are very important here. You know, the music programs, the sports programs, all of the things that really our schools do quite well for a small town. So I really appreciated a lot of that kind of background and foundation. I've been in a lot of places. So I started first in Chicago. So I went to school at Northwestern up in Chicago, which was, I'd tell people I'm going to Northwestern, and they'd kind of, is that in Kansas City? Or no, actually, keep going. And so I was in Chicago for about 15 years. Both of my girls were born there. Lived in New York with my company for about 5 years, over September 11th. And then lived with my company in Paris for about 4 months as well. And have since then moved up to Wisconsin for about 2 years, and then most recently to Ohio. So we're always on the move, but we're hoping we'll be staying where we are for a little while. I do get back, so I still have most of my dad's family, the McClellan side, are still in town, and then of course my mom from the Grant side. So I get back at least a couple of times a year, And of course, those are usually visiting family and maybe a few friends, but I recognize so many faces just from the many things, that I've done when I was younger, from when I was in high school, from our church, from Millersburg, from Williamsburg. So it's really nice to kind of get the opportunity to see a lot of those people for a longer period of time, not just in passing or kind of, in tales, but actually Facebook, speaking of social media, it's funny how much I know about a lot of the people who are out there, which is really great. I can say, how are your granddaughters? They were at the zoo last weekend. So it's really nice to get to visit with people.